The Whispering Woods. The group was larger at first, 12 friends excited for a weekend getaway into nature. They'd chosen a remote, off-the-grid forest, one that wasn't on any maps. It was their way of disconnecting from the world, free from the distractions of everyday life. No phones, no internet, just nature and good company. As the sun set on their first night, the fire crackled and laughter filled the campsite. The sky above was a deep, dark canvas dotted with stars. But as the temperature dropped, a chill crept into the air that seemed heavier than it should have been for a summer evening. The wind, gentle at first, began to carry with it an eerie sound, a low, almost inaudible whisper. At first they thought it was the wind rushing through the trees. The towering pines swayed, their branches casting strange, elongated shadows across the ground. But as the night deepened, the whispers grew more distinct. It wasn't just the wind. There were words in those whispers, faint and indistinguishable, but undeniably there. Julie, one of the campers, sat up straighter, her eyes narrowing as she tried to listen. "Do you guys hear that?" she asked, her voice hesitant. The group quieted, and for a few moments the only sounds were the crackling of the fire and the occasional pop of burning wood. Then it came again. Soft, disembodied voices, too faint to make out but clear enough to make their presence known. "It's probably just the wind," Mark, the unofficial leader of the group, said, trying to keep the mood light. But the others weren't convinced. One by one, they glanced around at the dark forest that surrounded them. The firelight only reached so far, leaving the edges of the campsite in deep shadow. Beyond that, the trees loomed like silent sentinels, their dark forms blending together into an impenetrable wall. As the night went on, the whispers persisted, growing louder in sporadic bursts. Some of the group tried to laugh it off, blaming it on overactive imaginations. But when Sarah swore she heard her own name whispered, the mood shifted. "Enough of this," Mark said, grabbing a flashlight. "Let's go look around, see if there's something out there." A few of them reluctantly followed, staying close to the fire's warmth. As they moved deeper into the woods, the trees seemed to close in around them, their branches intertwining above to blot out the sky. The whispers grew louder with each step, now coming from all directions. Voices, indistinct but urgent, filled the air. Suddenly, Mark froze. His flashlight beam fell upon a strange marking carved into the trunk of a nearby tree. A spiral, roughly etched and old, as if it had been there for years. But what unnerved him most wasn't the symbol itself. It was the fact that the bark around the spiral seemed to pulse like it was alive. Before he could say anything, the ground beneath them seemed to shift. The dirt felt soft, almost spongy, and the temperature dropped sharply. The whispers now had a rhythm, a cadence that sent chills down their spines. They weren't random sounds, they were a chant. "We should go back," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. But as they turned to head back to the camp, they realized they had lost their way. The path they had taken was gone, replaced by a dense thicket of trees that hadn't been there before. Panic set in as they tried to retrace their steps, only to find that every direction led them deeper into the forest. The whispers were deafening now, circling them, growing closer. Mark shone his flashlight in every direction, but there was nothing, no animals, no people. Just the trees and the oppressive darkness, and yet the voices persisted. Then one of the campers screamed. They all turned to see Julie standing frozen, her eyes wide with terror. Something was moving in the shadows just beyond the reach of the flashlight. It was fast, darting between the trees, too quick to catch a glimpse of, but it was there, circling them. "Run!" They bolted through the forest, branches whipping at their faces, the whispers chasing them. But no matter how fast they ran, the sounds followed, growing louder, more insistent. The trees seemed to shift and move, herding them in a specific direction. Just as their legs began to give out from exhaustion, they burst into a small clearing. In the center stood an ancient, gnarled tree, its twisted branches reaching toward the sky. The ground beneath it was bare, save for a single stone altar, cracked and weathered with age. The whispers stopped. For a moment there was silence. Then from behind the altar something stirred. It was a figure, shrouded in shadows, barely distinguishable from the darkness around it. Its form was human-like but distorted, its limbs too long, its movements unnatural. As it stepped forward, its face remained hidden, but they could feel its gaze, cold, hungry. They backed away slowly, but there was nowhere to go.